Good afternoon to you. It's afternoon here anyway. So what I'm going to do today, something a little bit different for me anyway. I'm going to take you on a little bit of a journey with me. Come with me and we'll be in a world of pure imagination. That's probably got rid of about at least 100 subscribers, I expect. So we're basically just going to, and I kind of wish I had like a head cam so I could be hands-free while I'm doing this. We're going to just do a few jobs basically. We're going to have a look around the greenhouse and do a few jobs, talk about a few things that occur to me. Again, it's a vlog. It's not the kind of thing that people will find in search, but if you're into this kind of thing, you might find it useful. You might just enjoy coming along for the ride. So that's what we'll do. So I'll just turn you around and we'll somehow try to do things one-handed, and I'll just show you what I'm doing and chat about different things that crop up. So let's go. And I promise you, no more singing. And we are in. So first of all, I'll just show you on my super notes, greenhouse jobs to do. If you can ignore my terrible handwriting there, I can do better than that. Honestly, it's just for me, it's not for anybody else, so don't be judging me. Right, so what we're going to do, I am going to do a few jobs. I've got some Mandevilla cuttings to pot up there. I've got some orchids to water. I've got various other things to do. But there's just a couple of things I wanted to point out. So I wanted to point this out. This is beautiful, this, isn't it? This is my Phragmipedium Besseyi. And it's got, well, I mean, what I love about these is the successional blooming on them. You just keep getting one after another after another. The leaves are looking absolutely awful, and I have no idea why. Don't know, can't come up with an answer for that. It's getting fed now. I mean, it wasn't for, you know, I didn't feed it through winter, and you can see I've got like blackening in the centre there. I think actually that because the other one's the same, the Phragmipedium Ainsworthii has been the same, all these black leaf edges, and some of the fans rotted off. I just wonder whether it was the worst of winter. I don't really know. It's coming up good, okay, at the side there. Somebody did suggest maybe splashing water on the leaves can cause that, so I'll make a concerted effort not to splash from now on. So we'll see how that does. I don't really know what the cause is for that. Answer in the comments if you know. And my Bougainvillea is growing great guns over at this side. It did have a little bit of a problem with a slug, so some of the new shoots were getting damaged by slugs, and Fudge is barking away at the background there. But I think it's going to do better on this side, because this is the side that gets, you know, whatever sun I get, it will get it over here. So hopefully that will start to come better than it did on the other side. And over here, finally, I've got this picture open. It's taken a long time, that, and I was absolutely certain that that was an upper picture. But, you know, this kind of thing, this loop here, is usually characteristic of an upper picture. But look at the size of it, it's massive. It looked really small to start with. This was the intermediate one, or was it? Yeah, that was the intermediate one. Basal ones, not basal ones, lower pictures tend to be like that kind of colour on this particular one. Kind of intermediate ones look like that. So we've got the colours around the peristome there, and we've got like the hourglass figure, and then usually the upper ones are much smaller, but this one has turned out to be another intermediate, I think. So maybe I'll get an upper at some point. And we've got a bloom. If you want to know what Nepenthes blooms looks like, or in fact Nepenthes buds they are actually at the moment, they will bloom at some point, but I mean they're completely boring. There's nothing to see. They're not like spectacular flowers, but just in case you wanted to know. This has actually bloomed a few times, and there it is. I've let it go because I want to see if we can get an upper picture on it. So a couple more things to show. Backing off. Again, this is its best at the moment. I know I've shown this a few times recently. The Tradescantia Maiden's Blush, looking its best. Let's just move on around. It's looking pretty bare in this side at the moment. I know we've spent a lot of time in the hothouse. My Nepenthes, Lowii crossed with ventricosa, looking fabulous. Got beautiful colours on there, great kind of hairiness. Can you see it? Can you see underneath there on the lid? We've got some hairs under there as well, which is characteristic of Lowii. Let's just move you around here a little bit. Another one that one is, I'm really pleased with that one. What else have we got in Nepenthes? I mean, they're all doing really well at the moment. They're just popping pictures right, left and centre. I do have a video on that if you want to know how to get yours to increase the number of pictures that it grows. It's usually light, to be honest. That's probably the biggest factor, getting enough light. Not direct sunlight, but getting enough light. Right, cyclamen. I have notice that I've kind of neglected to mention this particular point. So if you are into cyclamen, I would suggest, I have certainly found anyway, that bottom watering does seem to get better results. Top watering is okay, they will survive, they'll do okay, certainly even keep on top of it, but they do have a tendency to rot a little bit, and a lot of it kind of runs off because they have that tuber that's proud of the surface. So I found doing bottom watering simply by putting a pot underneath there like a tray and putting the water in there, they do seem to perform a little better. These are very late, that's very late coming into bloom now, and this one hasn't even started yet. But since I've started bottom watering them, that seems to have improved things a little bit. Okay, what about this? So we have over here Dendrobium. Now this was actually labelled as kingianum or kingianum, and I really don't know. Some people said it was delicatum, some people said it was something else. I believe there are loads of hybrids, crosses of delicatum, like variations in delicatum, not just one delicatum. I watched several videos on it and it doesn't look like either. I really don't know what it is. I would suggest that, but the actual kingianum that I saw didn't look like this. It wasn't as big as this, and it didn't have that amount, fudge, shut up. And it didn't have that amount of blooms on them, and the kingianum actually was more purple. So I suggest it's probably some kind of hybrid. I don't know what exactly, so if anybody knows, let me know. But the cur is the same. Phew, I think he's stopped finally. Okay, so what else have we got to discuss? So this fuschioides here, Begonia fuschioides, going through a bit of a yellow leaf patch. I expect it's just, you know, it's a bit tired. I probably could do with cutting it down actually and starting again with it. It's probably just because with it being like an evergreen plant, I think at some point in the year they're going to drop those leaves and produce new ones. It's probably not helping that I'm letting it bloom. Could be a good idea to cut it back a little bit, give it a little bit of a rest. So yeah, what else am I going to do? Right, well, I've just done some watering, and I'm going to actually water before I get on to doing the repot. I'm going to water some of my orchids. So I wonder if I can do this with one hand. So, goodness gracious, what on earth is he barking at? So what we've got here is my new sprayer. It's pump action sprayer, and it should, if I can get that over my body, I should be able to hang it over my body and hold the camera with one hand and show you what I'm doing. Now, I'm not in the best position here. I mean, whether anybody will be interested in watching me do this, I have absolutely no idea, but I'm going to give it a go anyway. Okay, and yeah, I'm definitely strangling myself. So basically, you know, it's just this kind of thing, and it's so much easier. Why did I never think of that before? So the Spanish moss gets its daily or twice, or 2 daily, every couple of days, a bit of a soaking there. And I always like to spray my Nepenthes as well, because again, if you've looked at one of the other videos that I've done, let's get that, ferns, these phlebodium do like some spray on them because they really do benefit from a feed. And phlebodiums are like the voracious feeders, so if you do have one, if you can spray it with something like orchid feed, then it really does help, especially the Nepenthes as well. They, you know, they're made to take in nutrients through the leaves, aren't they? Because if you think about it, what is a pitcher? In fact, botanically, a pitcher is an extension of the leaf. It's still classed as the leaf, and there is no reason why giving them some feed, a foliar feed, will actually prevent them from doing what they normally do every day anyway. This is my Dracula. This is going to bloom again. This is another one of those successional blooms. I don't know if that looks a little bit deformed at the end there, or maybe it's just blasted a little bit, I'm not sure, but I can't look at it with one hand. This is my nursery over here of all the dead and dying orchids. I'm not giving up on them just yet, but I'm just going to give them a little spray around the top there, see if I can catch any emerging roots. Obviously you've got to let them dry out at some point. That's a twinkle that's dying off. I think that one's gone completely. I like to give these Phragmipediums, a little bit of a water at the top. I know Phragmipediums can actually be, according to Ed anyway, and he's a frag expert, they can actually be watered really heavily on a daily basis. In fact, he says you can't possibly give them too much water, except if you go and water them on the leaves in the crown, like I seem to have done. I think that's the reasoning behind it. So I know I'm just giving them a bit of a spray there, but it's a daily thing, isn't it? So it should help. So I've got some dendrobiums. Never done this before. I've never given them so much on a daily basis. So I'm hoping this is really going to help them. I've got a Victoria Regina there. If it's just hiding behind the fern, asparagus fern, which I know is not a fern before anybody mentions it. Okay, so what else? It's so much easier doing this because it's killing my neck. It's so much easier because you don't have to actually grab hold of all the plants and take them to a bucket. Wish I'd thought of this previously. I still think I'm going to have to water. Of course, I'm going to have to water in terms of, once the weather warms up, which at the moment it does seem to be, we seem to be going through a warmer phase. Those two Oncidium Sherry Babies look pretty wet to me at the moment, so I'm going to leave those. I don't think anything down there needs watering. I've watered all those with a watering can. I do think I'll still need to water the orchids properly with a watering can once the weather in the greenhouse, once the temperatures really warm up, because they will need a complete swishing through, and of course they're going to need flushing as well. So this kind of thing that I'm doing now is really just a temporary measure. It's just to keep that ticking over, that little bit of water ticking over, touching those emerging roots. So my Streptocarpus saxorum, this is the best it's looked so far. We've got some nice blooms on it, and we've got some newly emerging buds. So that's going to be spectacular, hopefully this year. So let's have a look what else needs doing around the corner over here. This is really, really uncomfortable with this around my neck. So what have we got here? So yeah, my delicatum, kingianum, whatever the heck it is. It's obviously a dendrobium, isn't it? Again, if anybody's got any ideas, I think somebody did tell me at one point. I've got another little one at the back there. I think that's still got a bit of moisture in it. Better not overdo it. We've got a couple of epidendrums. I don't know if I mentioned this. I have got some like chunky coconut husk. Here it is. Chunky coconut husk. I've just managed to lay my hands on some of this. It's quite expensive, but it's supposedly pre-washed. Now I measured it with a TDS meter and it came out as about 70 parts per million. Now, on its own that might not be an issue because TDS is total dissolved solids, it's not salinity, and it's the salts that we're worried about, the total dissolved salts, not just solids. And I believe TDS meters just measure solids, so it could be anything. So even though it actually said ready to use pre-washed orchid media, husks, coconut husks, large grade, pre-washed, and they made a big deal of talking about how it was pre-washed and how you wouldn't need to do anything with it. So really I need to do something to check the salinity of this kind of thing. So I'm going to need some kind of salinity meter. Again, it's one of those things because you're not doing it all the time. I'm reluctant to go and spend on something like that, but I suppose I'm going to have to if I want to make sure that I don't kill them. So again, I've started putting a few things in these big husks. I'm replacing the bark because bark just doesn't seem to be working for the most part. It works for some plants, some orchids, but for a lot of my orchids the bark just hasn't proved to be a good media. It seems to be too easy to stay wet. It just doesn't seem to dry out the same, even though I put plenty of air holes in the pots. It just doesn't seem to dry out in winter. I'm talking about, of course, in winter. So where were we? Epidendrums, yeah. So I've got that in. It is like a coconut husk. It's not that as chunky as that one. And these seem to have come back again. Little dendrobium down there, nobly. That all seems to do plenty of roots, but it's very sporadic with its buds. Got a few buds on there. There's a couple there, That one's just come out. Looks like it's been eaten a little bit. So what else have we got up here? So we've got my, whatever that is, I can't see it, and you can't see it either. Oh, this one-handed thing is not working very well. There we go. Let's see if we can... Looks like a I think it is a vandaceous one, but I can't quite remember what it's called. I wonder if I can do this with one hand. It is a Renanthera, of course. Renanthera citrina crossed with Monachia. I've had a couple of blooms on that so far, and it does seem to be growing. It was very, very small. It does seem to be growing. I've got one remaining lithops over there, which I found the spray is pretty good for watering. There we go. We've got one Cuthbertsonii remaining over here, so we'll keep that a little bit moist. Nothing on that one. This one over here is my sweet Oncidium sweet sugar, which does have quite a few growths on it. You can see there at the side. It's not flowered. There's another one there. It's not flowered for a number of years, so I'm hoping this new watering method will make sure that it does. It's really just what they always tell you not to do. Give them a little often. That's my new tactic, and I know I've gone through loads of watering tactics, but you know, I'm nothing if not doggedly persistent, doggedly determined. It's my new tactic to try and make sure that they're not getting totally drenched, and then they stay totally drenched because we don't get that much sun. You know, they're not drying out. So that's the watering almost. Another one little bit over here. Now all these pseudo bulbs, okay, before I started watering in this method, were all like really wrinkled. Now look at them, they've all puffed up. And the only thing different is that they're getting some water near the top. It's not even all going through because there's hardly any going through, and there's loads of roots on that right underneath, but they're getting it where they seem to want it, near the new roots at the top. And they've all puffed out, and I'm really, really pleased about that. So let's see how that goes. Another phlebodium, and we'll just give it a full-on spray. And the same with these Nepenthes, give them full-on spray at this time of year, just to make sure that they get a little bit of feed. Because at the moment, I'm not opening up my doors yet. I mean, they're open this particular minute as we speak, but they're not open very much. That's only because I'm coming and going while I'm doing these jobs. And today it is actually warm enough. It's 12 degrees, and I've lowered the temperature in here to about 10/11 because I'm trying to save a little bit. Now look at this. Remember these Drosera? I'll just try and get to a better position for you. I don't know if you can see these things look much, much better in real life than they do on camera. But look at all that. Isn't that nice? Look at all those dewy goodness. And what happened, all those died off through the winter, and that was because they were all near the fan. And they just dried out. They don't like to be in windy conditions. And there's some more over there. And they're just all over the place, munching away at all the flies. You can't actually see any there. I really could do with this over in the hothouse because I've absolutely loads of little bugs in the hothouse, loads of little fungus gnats. And you can see one or two there. These on this particular pinguicula, well, on any pinguicula, these outer leaves die off and you just pull them away like that. That one's not quite ready. That one just comes away nice and easily, and you've got that new rosette in the middle. Now you can't do that with little Drosera like that because the whole thing comes away. They're very, very shallow rooted. Now I did some Drosera regia, king sundew seeds a long time ago, and in fact I was looking, it's just over a year ago, and I have one remaining seed. Now how's that for slow growing? Can you see the king sundew looking very unking-like right next to my finger? Can you see it? It's tiny, but it is nevertheless there. It ain't dead yet, so we'll hopefully bring that to maturity. They're looking really nice, aren't they? So what we're going to do is we'll head over to the workbench and let's have a go at doing something with these Mandevilla. Okay, so Mandevilla, if you didn't catch my latest care video on Mandevilla, Mandevilla like a really well draining mix. So over here, let's just move the camera. Gosh, this vlog thing is getting very difficult with just one hand. So what I've done here, I've got some multi-purpose compost. It's already got a bit of perlite in it actually, but I'm adding more perlite, and I've got some chunky stones and things mixed with a little bit of bark. I would really prefer something like pumice or even like large grade perlite, but I don't have it, so I've just got to use what I've got here. You know, I could go and buy some, but it's one of those things, isn't it? This hobby just eats up money, it just eats up cash. So I'm going to use what I've got. At the moment, they're only small, they're only juveniles. I'm only putting them in very small pots. So providing, and honestly, they'd be okay in that. They wouldn't die in that, I don't think. My other ones haven't died. It's just we're trying to be optimal. So I'm going to make it a bit more well drained so that they don't completely rot the roots through just being too fine particled kind of a media that holds on to moisture a little bit too much. Don't forget, these have eventually, as we saw from that one over there, the large one, these have a really thick starchy taproot. They are drought tolerant. They do not want to be wet all the time, certainly not in a pot anyway. So we're going to mix all this up, and then we shall separate them out and pot them, and I'll try and put you in a position where you can see what's going on. Okay, hopefully you can see what's going on here. So there's not a great deal to this, but I'll chat you through it as I'm doing it. So we have, how many have we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 4 little Mandevilla plants. None of them, I don't think, if I recall, had rooting powder on them, hormone rooting powder. They do root quite easily anyway, as long as you get them in so a little bit of bottom heat, preferably, gosh, making a pig's ear of this, aren't I? Preferably 18 degrees. I mean, most of these propagators, that's the temperature that they are at anyway. So can you see that? There we go. So we've got nice roots on them, lovely roots. I've done this before where I've kind of just repotted the whole thing into like a large pot, you know, like as a clump. And I don't know, I found that, I mean, I've only done it once, so it's not like scientific experiments or anything, but like a couple of them died. It was almost as if they were competing with each other, and like one of them took over. I'm going to reuse that moss. They've not been in there that long, so put a little bit of moss in the bottom. Let's find me. Where's my moss gone? Here it is. I use this for everything now. Like I used to put stones in the bottom of pots, but now I tend to put a little bit of sphagnum moss in the bottom, only because I feel that, well, obviously it blocks the holes up, so you've not got the media falling through, but it just gives that little bit of a reservoir at the bottom, just to, well, hopefully prevent you from having to water quite as much. Because, you know, especially this time of year, because we're going to get to the point where it gets stupidly hot in here, even if it doesn't outside. So, we need to mix it first, don't we? That's the fun bit. So let's get it mixed. Like making a pie. Now, does that look well drained to you? We've got stones, we've got perlite, we've got multi-purpose compost. I can't remember which one it is. I think it's a peat-free compost. It's probably the Miracle Grow that has coir in it. Definitely peat-free. I don't buy compost with peat in it, although I still have about 3 bags from previous years. So I will use that. I'm not going to chuck it out. Right, okay, start again. So a little bit at the bottom, and we have some beautiful little well-rooted cuttings here. And these should, because I'm going to leave them in the hothouse, these should really romp away once you give them like all the resources of a pot. I'm even going to bury part of the stem just to kind of give them another opportunity to root further up that stem. I think there are a couple of nodes on there, so it should root. So that's one done. And any that are beginning to get a little bit too long, it helps with that. So in that, look at that one. You often find this, don't you, that like one of them is doing way better than the others. These are going to be spectacular. Somebody asked me, do you get like the pink Mandevilla and the white Mandevilla? Because there's a white one with a yellow throat, which I did actually used to have, and it didn't make it through the winter, unfortunately. I should have taken a bit more care of it, although I don't know if that would have made any difference. They really don't like our winters. But the more mature you can get it, the more likely they are to survive the winter, you know? It's the common sense really, isn't it? That if you can, it's young, very young, aren't that good at surviving the winter. They're very young. The more roots they have, the more resources they have to cope with it. I mean, don't forget, 12 degrees, my minimum. The one that actually died was at about 15, but it just, I don't know, just didn't make it. I don't think it had a good root system to start with. Let's blame the nursery. So what am I going to do with these? Well, the plan is to either give them away. I'd like to swap if anybody has other colours, because I really could do with, or I'd like some other colours. I'd like to grow one of them over in the hothouse. I don't know where I'll put it, especially once all those philodendrons and anthuriums get going, if they do get going. But I would like to do a little bit more trading, because I spend way too much on plants, and I've got loads and loads I can possibly trade that I've got excesses of, or I have that you can divide or split, or I've got duplicates of, and so on and so forth. So if anybody's interested in trades, I'm always up for it. Just message me, or you know, you can email me. My email is in the about section, so there for everybody. tropicals@53@gmail.com. That's tropicals and then at for the at 53 at. That's the, you know, that one. Whee! Well, there's a name for it, but I can't remember what the word is. That particular at gmail.com. But I know, if you don't know, go and have a look at the about section and you'll see it. So that's that job done. So let's get my little super note out and let's have a look what's next. So separate Mandevilla cuttings, done. Check roots on Monstera in moss. So I've got a Monstera albo variegata in moss that Fiona gave me, and I want to make sure that it is actually rooting. I did have a little sneaky look online just to see whether moss is a good thing for them to be in, and apparently it is. You know, I was saying in another video that it seemed a little bit odd that we're growing things like that, these aroids in moss, but yet the kind of recommended media is more well drained and more airy. But it appears that yes, they like moisture, but they also like that air in between. They don't want to be suffocated. So moss does seem to be a good thing, and you can actually, well, I think you can continue to grow them in moss. Now obviously as they get bigger, they're not going to have any stability, are they, in moss? So I think it would probably be a good idea at that point, once they start to get a little bit larger, to move them on to something a little bit more solid, like your typical aroid mix. So that's what I will do. But I'm going to go and get my Monstera. I'll take these back and we will have a look to see whether it is actually doing what it's supposed to be doing. So let's get on with that job. Okay, and we're back with a couple of nice plants. Well, one's nice. What have we got here? Philodendron Florida Ghost. Yikes. So Smar sent me this. She swapped it, traded it very kindly. 2nd of February. What are we now? 17th of March. I've got it, or had it, in sphagnum moss. Obviously that leaf's not doing that great. And you can see that. Let's have a look. Ugh, oh dear. So, what have we got? Anything there? I'm not really sure. That root and that root. I don't know what these look like live. Anyway, that I don't know if they've dried up. We've got that one little shoot there. I mean, I have had it with a cover on it to try and keep the humidity, but you know, I mean, I've seen Florida Ghost a few times in pictures, and I don't know if I really like it that much, to be honest. I need to see one, you know, in real life, up close and personal, to see whether it's something that really interests me. But whether that's going to make it, I have very strongly have my doubts. We'll see. So this still looks great. It looked great when it arrived. It still looks great. Monstera albo variegata, 11th of 2nd from Fiona. Let us have a look. Right, please be growing, please. Now, good and bad. Well, never ever grown a Monstera in my life. That is clearly a live root, which is good. This one, I don't know. That definitely not. It's not soft. I don't know whether it's gone. It's died. There doesn't seem to be a growing tip on there. Monstera people will have to tell me whether that's good or not. That is, I mean, clearly we've got something there, so that's a good sign. So I'll pop it back in. It's also worth looking to see whether the moss is moist underneath, and it does seem to be. How did I get that in now? It seems to be too big for the pot. Where did I have it? Well, it's near the top then, isn't it? Where it's, so it was like there, and that's where the new growth is coming from, right near the top. Ah. I mean, these things, you know, have a look on Etsy, have a look on eBay. This particular plant at the moment is going for just like a huge amount of money, a stupid amount of money. I'm sure that won't last forever. I'm sure at some point that price has got to come down. And if anybody has an Anthurium warocquianum, I'm obsessed with that plant, thanks to Michael. Hashtag all Michael's fault. He introduced it to me. I know exactly what's happening here, and even though you know, I know that in the States it's not that expensive. I saw one for about $60, like a decent sized plant. But over here they're going for like if you want a mature plant, you're talking thousands, like £2,000 to £3,000. If you want a tiny little plant, you're still talking £150 to £200. Which is a lot of money, but for some reason that makes me want it more. So if anybody has one, or has a chunk, a wet stick, I've never heard of those two terms, but now I'm very familiar with them. I keep looking on Etsy, but you know, the ones I'm seeing just don't look very good. They're very small. It's a lot of money to spend. You know, 150 plus is a lot of money to spend on something that really doesn't look as if it's got much chance of survival. You know, really small. You're talking about tiny little plants with a couple of leaves on them, or a chunk that's not even rooted, a wet stick that's not rooted. So if anybody has one that they might want to swap something with me, or even if you want to offer me a price for it and it's a decent one, you know, with decent roots, then please do get in touch. You know, I'd rather do a trade than us both go and spend a load of money. You know, if there's anything you know what I've got, you can see what I've got. I would rather do it that way. So that can go back. I don't know about this one. I might even stick a lid over it again, see if we can encourage it to do something, but I'm not hopeful for that one. So that's another job. Let's have a look at that. I'm pleased about the Monstera albo variegata at least. At least that looks like it's doing something. So checked that, done. Hang smaller neps. Well, I've been doing that for a while. I've been hanging my smaller neps up. I've got a couple more Nepenthes, but I don't think they're ready yet for hanging. Keep inching out new Tradescantia hybrids to fill their pots and increase the stock. Okay, cut back water, Sarracenia, and any trads need potting up. So let's go and have a look and see what else needs doing over in the hothouse. I'll just take these back, and that might be the end of the video. Who knows, there might be some more to come. We'll see. So I'll just stop the video there, and if you see any more, you'll be lucky. You might get a bit extra.